Hey guys, Beth here at Yoga Pilates London. Welcome to video 2 of my YouTube series, Yogi Talks, a short tutorial series aimed at helping yoga teachers fine-tune their anatomy knowledge and also highlighting some important points, some functional anatomy points that can often get missed out of yoga teacher trainings. So today I want to talk about the core, this huge, complex, fascinating subject that we go into depth about on my Yoga Pilates online CPD training for qualified yoga teachers. But I don't want to go into a huge amount of depth about the specific muscles today. But I do want to debunk some popular myths that fly around in the yoga community and the Pilates community as well. So the first myth that I want to address is this cue that you often hear in a Pilates class about drawing the belly back to the spine, drawing that belly button back. Well, this isn't such a helpful cue because actually, if you look at it anatomically, the front of the abdomen is mainly fascia. So even when we're talking about these deep core muscles like the TA, the transverse abdominis, which is a really important deep core stabilizer, if we're looking at the anatomy of it, it actually starts at the back, connecting via fascia onto the spine, and then coming round the sides and attaching to a large sheet of fascia at the front. So it's actually more of a kind of side stabilizer. It does attach to the pelvis and then up to the ribs. And so a really nice way that I help my students locate this muscle is to get really deep down low at the front of the hip bones and sort of slide the fingertips in, feel the muscle there, and then kind of imagining when we're engaging the core, rather than drawing the belly button back, really thinking about it low down, like we're drawing the hip bones together, like two magnets being drawn together. And then that's where it's a really nice area to feel that core, that low tone engagement. And of course, we have the obliques at the sides as well to help stabilize. Now at the front, we do have the rectus abdominis, which is a core muscle, but it's not a deep core stabilizer. It's actually quite a superficial muscle. This rectus abdominis is six-pack, quite vertical muscle here that runs from the ribcage down to the pelvis. And that is important, but not so much for trunk stabilization or spinal stabilization. We also want to think about the role of the diaphragm, because if we're pulling the navel back to the spine, we're actually inhibiting that natural diaphragmatic breath. So the diaphragm on the inhale, flattening down, and then doming back up on the exhale, relaxing back up. So we have this sort of lovely jellyfish-like movement of the diaphragm with the breath, and then the pelvic floor actually responding to that as well, the movement of the healthy pelvic floor. And we'll talk about the pelvic floor in a later video, but I just want to address it today in terms of, if we're thinking about the core, we've got this like roof, the diaphragm at the top of the cylinder, and then the floor at the bottom of the cylinder, and then these muscles supporting around the sides. And so this natural movement with the breath coming in and out can be inhibited by this cue to draw the belly back to the spine. So another myth that I want to talk about is this idea of the core simply being the tummy muscles. This is a bit of a reductive view because the core is a lot more complex and multidimensional, a lot of different muscles getting involved to help to stabilize the trunk. And of course, there are important muscles here, as we've just talked about. So the obliques, the TA, the diaphragm at the top, the pelvic floor at the bottom of this sort of cylinder. And these are all really important for stabilizing the lower back. The multifidi are really important as well, these deeper version of the erector spinae muscles running up and down the spinal column to help to support the spine. But there are a lot of different muscles that help to contribute as well to the sense of core stability in the body. And a lot of them are connected with this big sheet of fascia at the back of the body called the thoracolumbar fascia. It's like diamond shaped, so it runs kind of out and down. So kind of from the mid-thoracic down to the lumbar and then down into the pelvis. And a lot of different muscles connect onto this big sheet of fascia, and some of them are housed inside the fascia, like the quadratus lumborum, the QL muscle, the erector spinae, the multifidi, as I've mentioned, but also a muscle we looked at in the first video, the gluteus maximus here, attaches onto the thoracolumbar fascia. And so when the glutes fire up, we get greater core stability. They pull on the fascia and then that pulls on the other muscles. So it kind of like it all works together in harmony, this lovely interplay of muscles. And then also thinking about the thoracic area, this is really important because if a person's walking around with their shoulders hunched up and they do a Pilates exercise and they haven't engaged their thoracic girdle, And a lot of that is about connecting to these deeper shoulder stabilizers. I won't go into huge depth about that right now, but two important muscles, the trapezius and the latissimus dorsi, both attach onto this thoracolumbar fascia at the back. And so by engaging these muscles, we switch on that kind of posterior chain in the body, this lovely sense of support, which ties into this sense of trunk stability as well. So I'm going to take you through a couple of exercises now to help to cement what we've been talking about, this integration of all of these muscles working together to help to facilitate the core stability of the body, the thoracic girdle, as we talk about it in yoga lattes, working with the abdominal girdle and the pelvic girdle as well. So let's come onto our backs, feet onto the floor, knees bent, and we'll start to warm up the spine a little bit here with some gentle pelvic rocks, initiating from the sit bones, gently flaring the sit bones away and then shining together, and then feel that subtlety of movement coming up through the spinal column. This lovely pumping of the synovial fluid through the spine, and then finding a neutral position with the spine. So a little bit of an arch in the lower back, maybe sliding one hand underneath just to check that you've got a little bit of space under there, not too over arched, not too flat, but somewhere in between. And then we're going to place the hands onto the front two hip bones. And we're going to have a sense of, if you imagine that you have a seatbelt attached from one hip bone to the other hip bone, and we're drawing that seatbelt drawing it tighter, basically, drawing those hip bones together, and then release that. So we're maintaining our neutral spine as we do so. Take a breath in, feeling the belly rise, this natural core stability, and on the exhale, we're adding on that feeling of drawing the hip bones together, tightening that seatbelt, and feeling that low abdominal engagement, and how different that is from simply drawing the belly button down. Okay, so we're going to maintain that, and we're going to add on the arms. So let's place the hands behind the head, elbows wide. Take a breath in, and exhale, we're going to draw the chin in and lift from the center of the chest, peel those shoulder blades away from the floor. And then you're going to feel automatically it's quite a bit stronger for the core. The core has to work harder here. But what I'm not feeling is any engagement in the upper part of the body into the thoracic. So if we take one hand alongside the body and really imagine we've got a lemon under the armpit there, we're gently squeezing that lemon, might feel a little bit more work. And then if we add on the other arm as well, same thing, shoulders down away from the ears, open across the chest, and really sliding the shoulder blades down the mid-back. I'm feeling quite a bit more engagement between the thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic. So then we can add on a lifting of the leg, maybe the other leg, lowering the lower back into the floor, so imprinting the lower back, squeezing the feet together in the knees, maybe taking the legs up, maybe down into that full 100 position with the 45-degree legs, drawing the chin in, and then beating the arms, breathing into the nose, and then feeling that breath coming into the chest, and then exhale, draw those front two hip bones together as you breathe out. So we won't do a lot of reps here. Let's draw the knees into the chest, resting the head down. I just wanted to demonstrate that really, and how we can change this engagement of the muscles in the body simply by, through awareness, but also really kind of working together with all of these three girdles to really support the trunk. So the last thing I want to show you is side plank. This is an exercise you might be familiar with teaching anyway in yoga, but it's interesting to look at it from the perspective of all these three girdles working together to provide this core stability. So we know side plank is a great exercise for the core, but we often don't think about it in relationship to the thoracic. And, sometimes I see people coming into this pose, with a sense of sort of hunching the shoulders up to the ears, and there's a real disconnect, particularly if we have this habit, and many people do, of this tension up into the top of the shoulders, and we'll talk about the shoulder girdle another time, but I won't go into too much depth about that. But what we want to do is really set this pose up before lifting up into it, really getting people to connect under sort of the armpit area. If you imagine you've got, like I said, there's lemons under the armpits, there's a sense of the shoulders moving down away from the ears, this engagement of the lats, the shoulder stabilizers switching on, and the shoulder blade as well. So spreading the fingers and thumb of that weight-bearing hand, making sure that you've got the wrist directly underneath the shoulder, and lifting up, sweeping your way up, lifting from the hips. So we have these muscles engaging, we have a sense of lengthening the tailbone away, but we also have the shoulders engaging as well. This lovely sense of taking the shoulder blades down away from the ears, and maybe adding on the legs if you wish to. So it's a lot easier to kind of extend the legs if we're really nice and strong in this upper body. And as I said before, all of these three girdles working together: thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic. Okay, and then slowly making your way down. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in working with me further, you may already be aware, but I'm running an online 80-hour CPD training for yoga teachers, Expand Your Teaching with Yoga Lattes, where we use Pilates techniques, resistance training to help you bring more strength and stability work into your classes. So go check that out if you feel inclined to do so. Otherwise, I'll see you for the next video. Bye, everyone.